Good morning. Actually, it's afternoon here. I'm speaking from Doha, but good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to Saba's Way of Life. I'm going to be talking about a lot today, and what I decided to do following my previous video just 2 days ago is that I'm going to continue with the habit that I have of sharing and imparting information to you just from my mind. But what I don't want to do is have it all written down and planned and structured, because the very essence of what I do is to share what I know, and therefore when I get stuck, I can either put those things in the description or go back and relearn. It's very much like a pedagogy system where I'm learning and I'm imparting that learning onto you, whoever you are that's watching this video. So just to remind you all, this channel is an education channel. It's completely off the wall in terms of how I think, because it is completely decentralized, or at least trying to be decentralized. By that, what I mean is that I do not subscribe to anything that the government tell us. It's all bullshit and wrong, 99% of it. I don't subscribe to anything that the medical system tells us, because they talk nonsense. And most of you know this. Their aim is disease management, so that the money can keep coming in from big pharma, who is ensuring that you stay on drugs to manage your condition, and in the meanwhile slowly kill you off. That is the design. So I recognized that many years ago, and since then I have been on the journey to educate myself, even in all things, not just all things health and nutrition, medicine, the real medicine, Ayurveda, ancient forms of medicine, reading, but also proper spirituality, not the woo-woo nonsense that you get now with all these gurus that are coming up. No one is a guru. You are your own guru, okay? So not that nonsense. It's the real science of spirituality, or spiritual science. For example, the work of Rudolf Steiner, the Rosicrucian, his version of an understanding of the science of spirituality, anthroposophy, and sacred geometry, which I've just entered into, biogeometry, coined by Dr. Ibrahim Karim. Recently, I've been really immersed in the work of Dr. Robert Gilbert. So I'm talking years now, 2012 to 2025. So that's 11, 12, 13 years. And it's 13 years of almost daily study. And I still know nothing, because every day I'm finding something new. The other thing, so I want to share this information with you, and bit by bit, it will help you or inspire you to go and do your own research. Something might twig. And as a friend of mine, Liz, said, Saba, keep doing what you're doing, because you're sowing seeds. And that's what it's about. It's sowing seeds. And eventually you'll be doing something somewhere else, and you'll remember something you heard. You may not even recall that it was from this channel or me. It doesn't matter. Why? Because everything I'm speaking to you from is speaking to you from a frequency which is, how can I say, that we are part of the whole. So it cannot be identified with, it's me, you got it from me. No, you got it from wherever you heard it, because it's part of the fabric of the universal mind. Everything I learn is from part of the fabric of the universal mind, where the messenger is coming through an individual. In this case, it's a human being, where this human being, you can see, has got the flesh and the bones, and it's in this physical reality. But many people get information from other sources. Of course, one has to learn to be discerning, to make sure that the sources they receive information from are decent, good sources. All of these things are important. So what am I going to talk to you about today? Well, if you recall, in the previous video, I talked to you about this and the things that you can do. So now I'm just going to speak straight out of my mind. This is not a rushed video. I'm not going to rush it. And I would recommend that you get a pen and paper. And if you've been doing that with all the videos, you'll have a list of different things and you'll start connecting. And then on top of that, if you then go back and research all the people I've mentioned, all the books I've talked about, go online. We've got online which you can use for good purpose to enhance your understanding of what's going on in the world and to understand who you are, and then you can impart that to your children or to other people that matter in your life. But first, you must wake up your mind to what's going on today, who you are, and why you're here. It has to be put into context. So the first thing I want to say, and it's repeated so many times, in terms of those of you who have taken this, and I mean, this is the worst thing that happened in 2020, but of course, many are very unwell and taking drugs for other ailments. But the first thing that I want to emphasize is that you understand very clearly that we as human beings, this technology that we are, electromagnetic beings that we are, have the ability to heal all conditions, especially relating to chronic diseases that are diseases that are built up over a period of time, rather than just breaking your leg. Although even breaking your leg, that can be healed in the sun and with infrared light. But you may need a surgeon for that. Surgeons, I call them engineers. Right, so the first thing to do is to ensure that you are aligning to nature's natural day-night cycles. That's the light and dark cycles. We are beings of nature. We should be outdoors all the time. It's only in relative recent history that technology, the technological society, has come in and taken over, in the sense that it has enhanced our left brain, which is dealing with structure, mechanistic views of life, and as a result of that has disconnected us entirely to who we are, which is part of the whole. And it's done much worse than that, because it is placed in our mind through mind control, government to govern the mind, through various mind control principles, namely using technology, and just for the risk of repeating again, through this device, through newspaper, through media, through radio when it started. Think about when all of this started, 1890s onwards, 1870s actually onwards, electricity in the house. All of those things have started to control our mind, so that we're taken away from the very fabric and frequency of nature, who used to inform us on how to think and what choices to make in life. So we need to reconnect to nature, and the way to do that is understand how our circadian biology works, the day-night cycle. The very first thing is that we must connect to the early morning sunlight, dawn. Now, why am I saying that? Because at that time, early in the morning, the sun emits rays The rays of light that it emits are a certain spectrum, which include UV rays, ultraviolet rays, infrared A rays. Now, remember what I said to you earlier, that everything we have been taught is a lie, and it is. So we have been told that UV is bad for us. That is a blatant lie. And if only you could use your common sense and think about what our ancestors did. They lived outdoors. They didn't wear anything to protect them from light. No sunscreen, that's poison. None of that. And they were outdoors early morning. They didn't eat the rubbish that we eat. So for example, I'll just give you one example before you say, well, when I go in the sun, this happens to me. It's not as simple as that. You have to really assess what you're doing as a whole. So if you're, which most people are, seed oils. When you are eating food which has a lot made with seed oils, commercial seed, I'm talking about commercial seed oils that are processed, they have an effect on your skin. So that when the sun hits it, it kind of fries it. That's not human food for human consumption. So I'm just giving you a tiny section of this. You must go and do your research outside of your normal mainstream algorithm box. That's why there's a blanket statement that says that commercial seed oils kill. They don't literally kill you. Everything that's happening today is a slow death. Biological weapons come in all forms and shapes. And it's very easy to mislead you because you can't see it until it's too late. Chronic disease doesn't happen overnight. It happens over a period of time, sometimes months, years, and then bang, it hits you suddenly. The only difference with change that I can say is after this, it's happening much faster in some cases, which is very obvious now because most of you have woken up now to realise this. But you need to wake up sufficiently to change your way of life, which is what this channel is about. So what I'm saying is, I don't want to keep explaining everything because nothing is a black and white explanation. It's just when you do this, you will note the changes that happen consistently. So awake in the early morning. Now, if you're living in the Northern Hemisphere, if you're living somewhere where it's very high latitude, like in the UK, where I live, not where I am now, thank goodness, but it's 50, 51 latitude, we don't get enormous amount of sunlight, but it doesn't matter if you can't see the sun. As long as you're out at dawn, the sun's rays are still there to a weaker degree, but they're still there. Connect with that. The other thing I'm saying is you don't have to, for example, I'm in the Middle East right now in Doha and I'm up at 5:30. Well, today was the first day I was up at 5:30. Before that, I was a little bit jet lagged and been going out in the evenings with my son. Generally, I'm up at dawn, and the sun is actually, even then, quite bright. So I wouldn't look directly at the sun because it would hurt my eyes. Use your common sense. You just look towards the sun. If you can look directly without it affecting your eyes, then do that. And they must be bare eyes. You don't wear sunglasses. Sunglasses are another by design scam to stop you harnessing the light of the universe. The energy, really it's the energy, because sunlight gives you energy amongst much else. We're energetic beings. We can't do anything without energy. So as soon as you connect to that, it sets the clock. So your circadian clock starts going, and as the light goes in, all of these chemical reactions take place through your skin, which is a melanin sheath. It's like a, well, it is. It's a solar panel, just like the leaves are a solar panel for plants. Our skin is the solar panel. for the sun. We need the melanin. So the chemical reactions take place with the melanin, and then melatonin, which is the night hormone, the darkness hormone. Actually, that clock starts early in the morning when you connect to dawn, and it says, right, let's start the clock so it is aware that as soon as it's dark, the melatonin will be produced. We produce melatonin. If you are taking supplements that the body naturally produces, you are killing yourself. It's not what you're meant to do. And if you do that, what messages are you sending to your body system? You're sending them, especially if you do it over a longer period of time, which people are doing, just pill popping. You're sending a message into your body to say, well, you know what? And to your mind, I don't need to produce it anymore. Cell atrophy. So your body starts going to this condition called atrophy, where it's just becoming lazy and doesn't need to do anything. And that's how you're killing yourself slowly. I'm being very, when I say things, I say it in a way to shock you. We have to go past this way of, oh, let's just be kind. Well, being kind has got us into this mess. Being kind, it does not even mean saying things in a certain way. Yes, that does apply sometimes, know when to apply it. But saying things which are very important, where people are not listening and acting accordingly, has to be said in a way that it can shock you. And that's what I'm doing, so that you think, oh, and then you take action. That's why I'm saying these things. It's not this mainstream new thing that's come out, oh, you're being so negative. Again, that's a mainstream by design statement so that people stay stum and don't speak for fear of being judged or attacked, especially when they're in jobs and it might affect their income coming in. Fortunately, that's not the case for me. So I really don't care what anyone thinks. I will speak the truth. And even if I was in that situation, I would make steps to do what's right. And doing what's right is speaking the truth. And therefore, speaking the truth, remember, speaking what I believe is important to say to you. The truth is dynamic. It's so difficult now because I have to be aware of how you perceive what I'm saying. We have to be able to be discerning, and if we say something today that isn't quite right, and you find knowledge that changes something tomorrow, be aware to be flexible and change your mind and see things from a different lens of perception. Fixed thinking comes from the left brain, logic and reason and right and wrong and this nonsense. It's important to some degree, but a tiny degree in compared to using our brains to think in a whole diverse fashion from different aspects and from different points of view. There's something that Dr. Robert Gilbert says where you need to see things as a circle from 12. The number 12 is very important. I'm not going to delve into that now, but see things from 12 different lenses of perception to be able to gauge what the truth is. Right, so now let me go back to what I was saying about connecting with the morning light. So those things happen. So it really is important that you do that. And that is not an option. If your health is important to you and you want to align with nature, there's a lot of other things that happen when you do this and live like this, which comes from the spiritual science point of view, not woo-woo. Proper spiritual science. I talked about Steiner. There are many others, but Steiner's just one I'm talking about. Rudolf Steiner. Look up his work. A lot of what he wrote in his lectures in the 1920s were designed for the people who were going to read them about now, at the turn of the century. It's mesmerizing. So number one, connect with the morning light. Number two, learn how to breathe. You absolutely must. These are things that are going to heal your condition. And even if you've done that, these are the basic principle things that absolutely every morning when you wake up, I mean, of course, I'll talk about sleep in a minute, but every morning when you wake up, give yourself time to wake up naturally. And in those first 15 minutes, stay calm. Breathe deeply. If you've had dreams, try and recall them and write them down. I want to talk about dreams another time, but they're very important because they are messages coming in when you are in a hypnotic state that you must take heed of. A lot of people don't dream because they're not getting the right sleep. Even if they're sleeping 8 hours, it's not the right kind of sleep. So, and then wake up and just spend 10 or 15 minutes in silence and find the time. Don't make an excuse and say, well, I can't. You've got to try. Find it if you can in the morning, if not elsewhere. But look, just pay attention to what I'm saying and then do what you can with the tools that you have. And take very deep breaths. What I want to say here about breathing, and we've talked about breathing and meditation, is that start understanding what our air is. Go outside and do this if you can. Put your coat on and go outside. Because air is not just simply your oxygen and carbon dioxide and all the other bits and pieces that are in there. Forget about it from a scientific left brain scientific point of view. Think about it as a life force, and it is a life force. Prana in Ayurveda is known as Qi in the Chinese medicine culture, traditional Chinese medicine. You want to, when you're breathing in, your mind, what you're thinking and feeling is very important, because what you think, what you feel, everything is being registered, and that creates your reality. And that creates the instructions to make choices and then what you do to act. It's so important. It's more important than anything. So when you're breathing in, you want to breathe in the life force. And one of the things I've learned through the work of Dr. David Clements, of course I've just read so much stuff on breathing. Try different things, but the idea is to take nice deep breaths. Don't, should it be like this in 4 seconds and 5 seconds? Just forget all that. Just be conscious of your breath and know that you're breathing in the energy of life force, energy. And when you breathe in, try to breathe in through your nose, but focus on filling your tummy, so your tummy is expanding, and think of that energy, that life force is coming in as you breathe in, and think of it, visualize it, it's going up through your body here, through your heart center, which is the center of it all, especially if you study the Rosicrucian spiritual science, which actually comes from all the old sciences going back. I don't want to go down that road, which started with, the Taoist and Egyptian tradition and the Vedic tradition, right? But through your heart, and then as it goes up through heart, then your lungs, your heart, and then it goes up into your mind. And as you get to this place, you just stop and hold. There's a center point just there. Again, many of you will know what this is, but that's not what this video is about. And try and hold for a little while, and then, now if you do this 3, 4 or 5 times, just be aware of how you're feeling. And if you can't do it because your breathing is shallow and bad, well, all the more reason that you need to, because there's something wrong there. Most of us are in that position. There's a lot of people in that position. We're a diseased society today, but be aware that the breath is everything. So just practice it. It's doing it every day. And every time you breathe, just know that you're breathing in life energy, life force. When you do that, your mind, which has already told the body that it's breathing in life force energy, which it is, then starts to trust you and says, we are getting life force energy. Let's start acting accordingly, and all the cells start to act accordingly and start sorting themselves out. to heal disease. See, remember, it's everything that you do. The other thing is to be aware of, I know this is not possible, is to ensure that you spend as much time outdoors in the air as you can wherever you're living. Let me tell you, I am now, I'd already stopped it to a degree, but I'm no longer going into a gym. Yes, I used to love my spin classes, and I have occasionally gone, but I'm cancelling my subscription because that is nowhere near as important as going outdoors and walking, which I do every day in nature, and the effect that it's going to have on my body. The fact that I don't even need to eat as much. I don't wish to eat as much. Sometimes when I went through a challenging period of not understanding why I'm not hungry, I just started to gorge because I felt that, I'm fighting it. But actually, I've stopped now because it's an amalgamation of everything that I'm doing together. So get outdoors as much as you can. And if you're in an environment where you can work outside, or keep the windows open, have the windows open. Now, if it's freezing cold, I know that's not possible, but just have the windows ajar a little bit so you've got air coming in. Get yourself some blue blocking glasses. I've got them. I've handed them over to my son at the moment, and I'm going to get some more. You must block out the non-native blue light that we're looking at coming through our screens, through our television, especially those awful plasma screens. They're designed to kill us. I've said it so many times. They're designed as a bioweapon, and our children are on this. You cannot allow your kids to be on a screen. All the developers of those screens and all this technology do not let their children near it. Did you know that? Because they know how dangerous it is. Just imagine that your cells are being zapped and you don't even know it every time you're looking at a screen. It's actually making me feel ill now. I should go and put my son's blue blocking glasses on. I've got the light, I've got the doors open here. I'm outdoors. Try and work outdoors if you can. Get into a habit. Many people who feel the cold, it's because you've got into a habit of being indoors and your body is no longer able to adjust to weather anymore. If it's working properly, you should be able to withstand some of the cold. If you're always cold, even though we can attribute that to a certain constitution to a degree, but if you're constantly cold, there's something wrong. Something's not right. Something's not working inside you. I mean, I know somebody who is in the gym 3 hours, several times a week, nice and slim, nice big, strong legs, and is always, always cold. All of this is just how it looks aesthetically. There's something very wrong. Do not think that just because you have a little bit of extra body fat that there's something wrong with you, especially if you're an older woman or man. As an older woman, we're meant to put on a bit of extra body fat. We're not meant to have the same body that we had when we were 23 or 24. There's something wrong if we do. We're changing. As we get old, hormones are changing, menopause comes along. Menopause, which is where our menstruation stops. And again, that's a subject for another day. So what did I say? Connect your eyes with the sunlight. Breathing, I talked about. Screens, blue blocking light, and minimize your time on screens as much as possible. Just those 3 things will have a profound effect if practiced consistently. Now, sleeping. I've talked about this a lot in many, many previous videos. You know what? I'm going to repeat this again. We are beings of nature. So essentially, when the sun goes down, and of course, don't be extreme and think, well, what do you do in Finland when it's dark for 6 months of the year and light? That's excessive, but that's why there's such a high suicide rate there. But they've evolved to do things differently. I'm talking generally when the sun goes down, whether that's in the wintertime, 5:30, 6:30, 7 o'clock or later, that's when we should be preparing to sleep in complete darkness. Now, I have put a video out some months ago to say we should get 8 hours, and I do subscribe to that. But really, what I'm trying to say there is not the fact that it's 8 hours. It's the fact that there are stages that we go through in sleep, which are made up of non-REM, non-rapid eye movement sleep, and rapid eye movement sleep, and it's a cyclical thing at certain times of the night. Now, one thing is for sure, that sleeping before midnight, again, use your common sense here, sleeping before midnight is extremely important, because within those hours the body is cleansing itself, the mind is cleansing itself, the liver is detoxing, and your brain is having a shower so that certain memories are then stored in different places, so you wake up fresh. A lot of people with emotional issues and depression issues, as you know, don't sleep till very late or early hours of the morning and then can't sleep. So you can see the pattern that's forming, that's causing this chaos and dysfunction. The brain needs to have its own bath at night, and that happens when you sleep. And then you go through the periods of rapid eye movement, that's when dreams occur, versus non-rapid eye movement. Most non-rapid eye movement heavy towards the first half of the night, roughly, and the second half, it's more rapid eye movement and dreams. And this is when we dream. This is where some people go off on a journey somewhere. Yeah, because we are light beings. This is going into spiritual science now. Again, very real. It's not woo-woo. You've got to, you know, I've talked about this before, but this is great. I read this in one of Dr. Jack Kruse's books and his videos, the difference between fact and fiction. And fiction needs to make sense. So true. We've been so mind controlled and manipulated. All right. So it's important that you sleep. So for example, where I'm concerned, I will be in bed by 9 o'clock and I will be asleep by 10, wherever possible. And then I'm up naturally. I don't have an alarm. Now, if you have to put an alarm on, you have to, but try to avoid that. Get into a habit of sleeping at the right times and you naturally wake up. But it's the stages of sleep that's important, that we go through all the stages of sleep to be able to function as a whole, left and right brain. Okay, so let me repeat. Connecting with the sun in the morning, breathing, getting off the screen, putting blue blocking glasses on, air, open the windows, get outside as much as possible, sleeping at the right times. Now let me talk about food. Again, I've talked about this for so long, and I went through a stage where it was paleo and eat more meat and eat this. Well, actually, think about where you live and think about aligning to nature and use your common sense. Of course, if you can grow your own food and nourish your soil first, it's all about the soil, getting the soil as alive as possible so that there are billions and trillions of bacteria in each tiny amount, teaspoonful. And now I'm going to say very clearly, I did in many videos before, say, start somewhere and then move on to organic seeds. Well, I'm going to say now, no, start directly with proper seeds that are organic, real seeds that haven't been tampered with. Because I'm telling you now, there is genetically modified hybrid one, but I am absolutely convinced that the dial is being turned up on the level of poisoning going on. And if you look at, for example, the chemical glyphosate that is sprayed on, it's a bug killer, glyphosate, sprayed all over crops, but it's also in just general weed killers and just, it's in everything you can buy at the garden centre. You'll have an element of glyphosate. Glyphosate kills you. But what I'm trying to say to you is that these things are designed to destroy the human being. And they have worked on systemic poisons, on killing weeds. Look at how it works. Look at how it works. When you have a weed, and you know, be aware. Think about what's going on. I've been gardening for the last 4 years and growing my own food. And now the understanding is deepening that we are the same as our plants. We are nature. The difference is that we are arguably diseased with the left brain thinking and reasoning mind. Otherwise, we're no different. The difference is, of course, they have chlorophyll and they're absorbing giving off carbon dioxide, so we are absorbing oxygen, giving off carbon dioxide, they're absorbing carbon dioxide. But their blood is the chlorophyll, where magnesium plays a big part. Ours is blood. It's our blood, a hemoglobin and iron. It's just a difference in the periodic table, the elements. When you pour weed killer over it, systemic weed killer, what happens over a weed? It happens over a period of time. So it will sink down to the roots, but systemic means over a period of time, it kills the entire mechanics of that plant. So first it will go into the leaves, go slowly into the leaves, and slowly and surely and systemically it starts breaking down and killing every organ in the plant until eventually it dies. Of course, a plant's life cycle is much shorter than a human being's. That is exactly what's happening to us, folks. Wake up. We're being systemically killed. And now, since 2020, the agenda is to do it a lot faster. Whack! And they know, when I say there, you need to do your homework on who these people are. And I'm digressing a little bit, I've given you various sources. Hundreds and hundreds that I've read, listened to, watched. But look up the work of Dr. Jack Kruse, who talks about the centralized systems in a proper way and who they are. Look up the work of another scientist that I used to read about, who I'm afraid I don't trust. I'm not going to give you his name. I don't trust him anymore, because after listening to his work for a period of time, I'm beginning to understand that he's not as decentralized as I first thought he was. There are many of these individuals that come out with half-truths, so that you listen to them and think, yes, I know, they're out of the system. But they come out with half-truths, which is by design, and then the other half is very dark. And for me, in many respects, they're worse than the fully centralized people that telling you blatant lies. This is why discernment can only happen when you are sound of mind. So Dr. Jack Kruse, listen and watch his work. He's on YouTube, he's all over. He'll tell you what these dark forces are. Right, where was I before I started talking about that? Yes, so I talked about systemically killing us. That's why before that I was talking about growing your own food. So grow your own food. Do not use any poisons on them, and use other ways of protecting the plants. And there are many ways of doing that, through companion planting, through interplanting, and many other sprays like neem spray you can spray. But get growing your own food. And the other thing is, when you eat, and if you have to purchase food from outside, make sure, this is so important, make sure that food, whether it's meat or veg, is grown locally. Eat according to the land that you live in. We should not be eating bananas if we're living in the UK, because bananas aren't grown in the UK. Well, maybe some places arguably they are, but you know what I mean. Now, I'm here in the Middle East, and if you look at the surrounding, I don't think bananas are grown here. But what is grown in the desert. Yes, I'm eating lots of dates and they are lovely and they are full of magnesium and lots of vitamins and minerals, but I should perhaps be eating camel meat. But I am eating some pineapples and things, because they are grown in neighbouring countries. We can't be too dogmatic, but be aware of it and be very aware. So when I go to the supermarket here, there are supermarkets where 90% of the produce is imported. And then there's another part, which is the cheapest part, that nobody wants to buy from, because it's, I need to buy British apples and Spanish oranges or whatever. I go to the area which is local, so either produced in Doha, in Qatar, or in Qatar, or produced in India, or produced locally in Oman or neighbouring countries. And I'll buy that produce, and they're the best value. People don't want to spend money on best value because it's all about image, isn't it? We have to let go of our identity. Those days are gone now. Being obsessed with image is a disease, and that disease is one by one you're dropping like flies. That's what it's going to do. And if it's not, it's going to take over your mind where you can't think anymore. Android, that's what I called them, humanoids. Right, so I talked about sleep, I talked about eating locally. So make sure you eat locally and eat food that is as close to the state of nature as possible. So I'm not suggesting eat loads of raw food. If your gut's compromised, that's hard. In the summer, it's easy to do. But be careful you don't kill it through cooking, or do certain things which enhances it through cooking. And you don't have to eat loads, but eat as natural as possible. Understand who you are, trust yourself, and ensure that you put lots of soups and foods that don't involve a huge amount of digestion, because our guts are compromised today all over, autoimmune diseases and so on. So we have to gear our eating towards the state of our inner organs and the state they're in today. Bread, please be careful of gluten, because the bread is not made with the wheat that it used to be made of. It used to be made of, 6 foot tall wheat. Now, there's another thing here I'm going to say. While I'm saying all of this, for those of you who have got some kind of a spiritual part of your life, you will also understand how our energy can change the nature of food. That has been proven through the work with water, how saying a prayer before you drink water changes the whole structure of that water. It becomes more coherent. So there's that to consider as well. But for those of you, we're so far removed from our faith, and I'm not talking about religion, I'm talking about understanding spiritually who we are. Spiritually meaning from the right brain and our connection to our higher self. Again, that word has been bandied around, but it is our higher self. There's another side of us which doesn't come from the left brain. Messages come in, and this will happen if you start to live this way of life, come in from elsewhere, where you must take heed of them. It's not a gut instinct, that's something else. That kicks in when you don't take heed of that. But most people ignore their gut instinct, or because they don't even have it anymore. But that is the source, our source connection, our connection to the divine. Again, don't mistake this for religious words. Religion came after all of this, and then it was put into a box and turned into titles. And I'm not suggesting that's wrong either. Think about what I'm saying. I'm saying that man made certain rules to say this is how you will practice it. But there weren't those rules before when they first came upon our lands. It was who we were. The left brain evolved over time. It wasn't there before. We did not even speak before. We communicated. We were a different type of human being, but we communicated just through telepathy. We didn't even eat. Not very much at all. Maybe an apple a day. I mean, again, I'm speaking metaphorically, whatever was around then. All this eating has made us dense. Dense. We're light. We're there to absorb the light of the sun and then create energy within us, create light, absorb the energy of the sun and create light within us through the waters of our being, through our mitochondria. We're not taught any of this at school, are we? Biology. Right, so that's the food element done. Now, the other thing I also said I was going to do in the previous video is what you can do as a solution if you've had this. Now, in my previous video, or the one before that, I shared a book called Epi-Paleo RX, written by Dr. Jack Kruse. He actually wrote that in 2011. The first thing I'd ask you to do is get that book, because anyone can read it. It's written in as if he was talking. So a 10-year-old, well, I don't know how intelligent 10-year-olds are today. It depends on how they're raised, and if they're put into mainstream school, then they're probably not reading at all. But it's a simple, easy book to read. Get that book and read it. And the second thing I would ask you to do is, this is important, and I will expand upon this in other videos because it's already 46 minutes. The other thing I would ask you to do is to, because not everybody wants to go onto Patreon, but there are certain, depending on the type of jab that you have had, and remember, the information I'm giving you here is what I would do based on the knowledge, because I have to be careful what I'm saying, based on the reading that I have done, and what I would do if I was talking to family. There are a couple of members who've asked for help now. And there are certain pharmaceutical drugs on the market. Remember, oh, I thought you were anti-pharma. I am anti-pharma. There are certain types of drugs on the market. Listen to me in full. This is an emergency situation. There are certain types of drugs on the market which were banned during that period because they were healing individuals and stopping certain mRNA, I won't go into further detail, certain chemicals and compounds produced as a result of these from proliferating inside our cells. One is called ivermectin. There, you probably have heard of it. And there's another one called now, this is why, see, I'm speaking from memory, I don't have it planned. I'll put it down in the description. But then there's more recent work done by Dr. Jack Kruse on cannabinoids and THC, which has healed. There are elements within those that overlap with the positive effects of ivermectin and the other one, fludzole, which are having miraculous effects to help individuals that have taken particular jabs. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, oh, please tell us where I can find it, please tell us, then you will need to subscribe to Dr. Jack Kruse's Patreon page. He can't put this information out because it will be taken down. He speaks about it all the time. It's on his X. You need to subscribe to X if you're not on there, the old Twitter, and read his threads, but you need to read it in full. You need to be absolutely absorbed in what he's saying. It's not, oh, do this and do that. You have to understand it in context. That's why I've said read that book first. But of course, it's evolved since then, and I've read scores of his posts. So I'm still trying to understand it as a whole. And it's my mission to want to understand this and share it with you, even if it just means I've said enough for you to then take over and do your own research. But he is now going into the Amazon. He was in Suriname, which has the biggest, it's a small country, area of untouched Amazon rainforest. And he's written fantastic blogs just recently in the last 2 weeks on what he's found there with the people that didn't take that, those people that live in the Amazon and tribes that did and had effects, and he explained why they had the effects even though there was a sun there. It was this technology. And those that didn't, and those that did, who healed themselves using ancient medicine, forest medicine. You know what I'm talking about here. They don't have the drugs. They understand the forest floor and the plant medicines and the effect they have on the body and the cells. So go to his Patreon, go to Patreon, find Dr. Jack Kruse, and then you would have to take the subscription of £4.50 a month with him to get those blogs in full. But I will be sharing a lot of that work, or at least I'm going to try to share some of it to others as I do these videos. But those were the 3 things, and if you want more detail, you need to absorb yourself, because actually, you know, let's be clear here, your lives are at risk. I mean, Dr. Jack Kruse has openly said all those that had the Pfizer jab and now the Moderna jab are in grave danger, and those that haven't already submitted to it, like gone, need to know what's going on, because the next 10 years are not going to be great if you're not aware of what this does over a period of time. So, you know, I said all the first few things to you. Those things get done. Nature is its own medicine, but there are other solutions and other actions that you can take if you're interested. Always be guided by something within you, your source connection. I can tell you now, those individuals that are connected to both sides of who they are, who we are, will be able to heal themselves. Just themselves, without anything. I argue that that can be done, but those are a very, very, very tiny percentage. You will likely need help. You see, if you ask why is this all happening, it's all happening because the whole idea of this is to stop us connecting to who we are and understanding why we're here. And it's happening right in these times because there's something very special happening in these times. We're waking up, and we're waking up because of the cosmology of the universe. Again, it's not woo, it's the science that's been kept from us. You go to NASA and look at the work they do. They understand this. We're not taught this. And we are in the Aquarian age where the sun is very important right now, because that's our star. And we're in the age of the sun. I could go into more detail if I was talking about the Rosicrucian. If you want more information on that, Dr. Robert Gilbert and his work on sacred geometry and biogeometry. Sacred geometry is everything. What is sacred geometry? Geometry. Geo, the land. Patterns of the land. Sacred patterns of the land. They don't want to use the word sacred, but they are sacred. Patterns. Patterns. Everything is about patterns. We're a pattern. Everything you look at is pattern. Patterns matter. Energetic frequencies matter. I'm delving into so many different areas, and they all start to eventually connect. Actually, the whole concept of food, it does matter, but nowhere near to the degree of the other things I've spoken about. The sun is probably the most important. We have to become the old beings that we were, and we're being helped at these times, and that's why there is an effort to stop it. But it's not going to stop, because nature will always triumph, and triumph isn't about winning or losing. Triumph is it will sustain. That is the truth. That is an axiom. Nature always has her way because it's nature. Nature is the divine force that we live with, that we are ourselves part of. I've said before, we're very, very, very powerful beings. If you understood our technology and you harnessed that technology and start living what you are here to do. You will not do that if you're not healthy of body and mind. You've got to get the vehicle working properly first. And at the same time, don't think, well, I'll look at all that once I've got the vehicle. Do everything together. Spend time in meditation. Read a little bit about faith and understanding that certain prayers have a resonance. It's not just about what you're reading. It's the frequency it's emitting. It's the resonance that it's emitting. When you're saying a prayer over food, it's changing the entire nature of the food, but it depends on how balanced you are and whether you're emitting the right kind of energetic frequency. There's a lot of help we can get with that. Look at the work of Dr. David Clements, who was and is, because he's a PhD in string theory and theoretical physics, before he realized that that's not giving any of the answers he needs to know, and he moved to quantum physics and then realized, oh my God, you know, we're not here on our own either. There are beings all around us, which so many religions call angels and all these other things. They are there right now, and we're supposed to be working in communion with them, with the right ones. Again, that comes from when you are thriving, you'll be able to discern that. So slowly. I will put information down in the description, probably a little bit later, not right now. I'll put the video up first. And even if it means you come back tomorrow or the day after, come back and look at that description, and it'll give you a lot of insight into where you can go to get more knowledge and see what attracts you. And the most important thing is, first of all, get your sleep patterns right and connect with the sun. I didn't talk about the sun at sunset. If you sun gaze at sunset, very, very powerful. Again, the rays that are emitted, oh my God, it's all there for us in nature. The energy, the rays that are emitted at that time, synthesize with us if we're able to harness that energy, and our cells are able to bring in that energy and convert it to light. You have to be, you just start somewhere. You won't need to eat as much the next day because it will synthesize all the vitamins and minerals so that you don't even feel hungry the next day. It's all nature. Don't forget also to ground on quality land. Make sure that there's no dirty electricity underneath. Depends where you're living. I would never ground here because where I'm living is it's a desert that's been turned into a technological society. I can feel it. I don't even need to check. I know that there's underground cables everywhere. Not clever, but at least the sun is there. And my son's going to be taking me out into the desert to a farm, and I'll probably ground there because there's no technology there. I'll ground properly. So what we're doing is we're grounding ourselves, but we're also connecting to a higher source. The actual center point is in the heart, through the heart space. Everything happens through the heart space. Anyway, more on that another time. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will speak to you next week.